We're holding Perek Shishi in Mishlei. This particular Perek has some very valuable lessons in life. All of Mishlei is important. Nevertheless, you will find, especially the first half of this Perek, which we will discuss today, contains some very valuable advice as to what to avoid. Many mistakes that people make unnecessarily. Had they studied Mishlei, hopefully they would not have made these mistakes. These can be very costly mistakes in life. So let's begin with the first important area, and that is the area of finances. We're talking about friends, but even strangers can get involved in problems concerning finances. Initially, there is some degree of trust. Initially, one has in mind to do a favor to the other. After all, chesed, gemilut chasadim, is an important mitzvah. But the rabbis warn us, just because chesed is an important mitzvah, you have to be careful. Don't let people take advantage of you. You lend money, be sure to sign it. In other words, that the loan is signed, that there are witnesses. Be very careful not to do things orally. As you will see, you never know. Things can go wrong. All sorts of things can happen, and you may find yourself in trouble. So beginning with Pasuk Aleph, Beni ma'arafta l're'echa taka'ata lazar kapecha. Shlomo Melech is discouraging us, very much discouraging us, from being a cosigner, from being an arev, from promising an individual, don't worry, lend him the money, I'll pay it if he doesn't pay it. There is no such obligation in the Torah to be an arev. Not only is there no obligation, it is discouraged. The only exception to this is if you don't mind giving up that money in the future, if the borrower does not come up with the money. If it's an amount that you can live with, you don't care if you have to pay for it, you won't lose sleep over it, fine. But if you're going to get a heart attack because you're being asked and you're being demanded to come up with the money, then don't put yourself in that situation. There is no mitzvah, and it is foolish, Shlomo Melech says, to do something like that. Beni ma'arafta l're'echa taka'ata lazar kapecha. If you already did co-sign to your friend or shake hands, taka'ata lazar kapecha means to shake hands on it with a stranger, you're in deep trouble if you did so. Why? Nothing has happened yet. But as we will see, the chances of failure are very high. The chances of a loan not being repaid are high. Unfortunately, first of all, the guy may die, even if he wants to pay back. And there are many crooks out there who simply don't want to pay. And then you have the situation where the guy really will not have the money. The chances are very high that the money will not be paid back. So if you've co-signed, if you've promised to your friend, meaning to the lender or to the borrower, regardless of who we're talking, it makes no difference. Either of them can be your friend. Nokashta bimrei ficha, you have tripped. You have made a terrible mistake. Nilkatta bimrei ficha, you have been caught with your words. Your words and your promise are going to chain you down. Unnecessarily, you have become a slave, a potential slave of the malveh, of the lender, just because you've made a promise, because you've expressed your interest, and all you really wanted to do was to help. But makes no difference. If you're prepared, even if it's your brother, if you're prepared to carry the consequences, then fine. I guess people are willing to do so for their brother. But if you're not willing to do it for your brother, if it's too much money involved, then don't do it even for your brother. Why should you lose sleep over it? You have no obligation. One second. Let's go on, because otherwise we're not going to be able to flow smoothly over here. Therefore, Shlomo Melech is going to tell us, if you got yourself involved in this kind of a situation, I advise you to get out of it as soon as possible. If you ever make this mistake and you regret it, get out of it as soon as possible. Because you have fallen into a trap. In other words, you were caught. Your words are the ones that, of course, got you into trouble over here. So what should you do? Aseh zot efo beni v'hinatzel. Do as following, and you will be able to save yourself perhaps, kivata bechaf re'echa, because you are now in his hands, in the hands of the lender. Hitrapes urahav re'echa. Try to befriend him, try to beg him, try to somehow get him to cancel this promise. Encourage the borrower to pay up. Do whatever you can immediately to undo what you just did. And it may be possible if you do it early on. Now, some of you may be unfamiliar with this kind of a situation, but it happens all the time. I once had an individual come to me from Israel. He's collecting money. So I figured, most people collecting money, he has to marry off his daughter, there's an operation, somebody's sick, debts. No, this was an unusual situation. He was working for the post office all his life, he tells me. I had parnasah. I had a pension plan coming too, comfortable life. But I made a stupid decision once to co-sign for a friend of mine who was buying a dira, an apartment. And in Israel, things work a little bit different than over here, even though here there are co-signers too. The bank required a co-signer. The guy put a deposit, took a loan, but he needed a co-signer. And I foolishly co-signed. And what happened in the end? The guy not only did not pay, he ran away. Ran away, so the bank came after me. I don't have the money to pay the mortgage, so they want to take away my pension, what I worked so hard for all my life to save. They want, in Israel they have no mercy. They attach anything they can. They take away your radio if you have one in the house. No, everything. Ikul, as we call it in Hebrew. And he says, I told him, didn't you learn Mishlei? Mishlei says not to do that. He says, yeah, but I didn't think he's going to run away. But that's exactly what happens. Beni marafta lere'echa, another interpretation is, if you in fact did something like that, to co-sign to your friend, you know what will happen in the end? Takata lazar kapecha. That man who was a friend, in the end will be a stranger. He will behave towards you like a stranger. I don't know what you're talking about. Or he will run away. You once upon a time co-signed for your friend. What you've just done is sign a contract with a stranger. Make believe he's not a friend, because there is a good chance that he will not behave as a friend. And he will run away or simply not pay, and you will be stuck with the bill. Therefore, what can we do? He says, try whatever you can to befriend this lender, this other man, the one who lent the money. Try to be on his good side. Urhav re'echa also means try to get many people to influence him, many friends to help you, to convince him, to perhaps make a change. Be on his good side. In English we would say, try to be on the good side of the lender. Be his friend. Don't make unnecessary arguments with him. Don't get into a fight with him. Try to be on his good side. Al titen shena le'einecha. Don't go to sleep until you solve this problem. Act quickly. Al titen shena le'einecha means don't try to postpone dealing with this issue, figuring, well, there's 5 years to go until the man has to pay up. I'll worry about it then. No, al titen shena le'einecha means don't sleep over it. Don't allow one night to go by. Because the earlier you take care of it, the better it is. Why? Because early on, he's still your friend. Early on, the lender may somehow do you a favor and be on your side and demand something else. Earlier on, there is a chance that you can solve this problem. If you wait till the last minute, the money is due now, everybody's upset. And it's not going to be that easy. So don't sleep over it. Don't drowse. Don't go to sleep. Don't delay taking care of this problem. As long as you still have a good relationship with the lender or with the borrower, try to get this matter solved. Hinatzel kitzvi miyad. I'm using my own translation instead of using the translation of the Tanakh, because it's a little easier to understand. The translation sometimes in the Tanakh is a little difficult. Hinatzel kitzvi miyad. Save yourself like a gazelle, he says, from the hand of the hunter. Uchetzipor miyad yakush, and like a bird from the hand of the fowler. In other words, save yourself like a deer who's about to be trapped, or like a bird that's about to be trapped. How do you do that? If you act quickly. The tzvi, the deer, if they act quickly, just on time, they may be able to get away. It's possible. In other words, try to be on the man's good side. I'll give you an example. Let's say you realize you made a mistake. You go over to the borrower or to let's say the lender, and you befriend him. You become really friends with him. Comes along 5 years, and you've been investing in this friendship, and the borrower does not have the money or ran away. The lender is your friend now. The lender is being in good terms with you, and he says, you know what? Okay, give me 50%. You're my friend. I'm not going to demand all of it. I lose half, you lose half. If they wouldn't be in good terms, he has all the right in the world to collect the money, right? And that's what he was telling us. Itrapes urhav ra'echa, be his best friend. Try to be on his good side, or get the borrower somehow to pay up. Be in good terms with them. That's all you have. You have no choice. What are you going to do? You made the mistake. It's done with. She says it's still possible if you act quickly. You will be saving your skin like a deer that acts quickly before it falls in the trap. But you have to act quickly.
But what if somebody lie and deception?
That's another issue. We'll get to that eventually. Yeah. So therefore, time is critical. Time is very critical, and you may be able to solve this problem. Now we go over to another area in life. Those individuals who are lazy. People who are lazy don't get things done, and it's a terrible midah, terrible characteristic. And Shlomo HaMelech says, we have a lot to learn from animals. As the rabbi tells in the Gemara, had we not received the Torah, we would have learned modesty from a cat. We would have learned faithfulness from the doves. We would have learned diligence from the ants. Lech el nemala, go to the ant. Atzel, you lazy bum, right? Atzel. He calls it over here sluggard. Lazy. Re'eh derachea v'chacham. Just watch how she lives her life, how she works so hard, and you will become smart from it. You will learn something from it. There's a lot to learn from an ant. What is there to learn from an ant? First of all, the Midrash says something incredible. The Midrash says that an ant, on the average, lives 6 months. And in the entire 6 months, it eats 1.5 kernels of wheat. But how much does it save? How much food does it bring into the storage house? A lot more than what it needs. And if you ask the ant, why do you work so hard? This is the Midrash. The ant will say, maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give me more life, so I have to have more food. This ant is smart. It takes every hita, every kernel of wheat, and it cuts it in half. Because if it gets moist from the rain, it should not begin to sprout. If it did get wet, it takes it outside and dries it up. These ants don't steal from each other. And there's a story of an ant who once was schlepping a kernel of wheat, schlepping, dragging, taking, and it fell off her mouth. It was heavy, and she didn't go back to get it. A whole bunch of other ants came, and they took a smell, and they realized it's somebody else's, and they left it alone. So the original ant eventually came back, and it was still there. Right? Try to leave $50 outside in the street here. Yeah? Finders keepers, they say. Not with the nemalim, not with the ants. Whatever you worked on is yours, and nobody else will take it from you. There's a lot to learn from the ants. Now, why is he telling this to us? What is there to learn from the ant? It's not to be lazy. What's wrong with being lazy? Laziness could affect one in his job, in his career, in his ability to earn money. Imagine a husband, a father who does not want to work. His wife loses respect for him. What are the kids going to look up to? What kind of a father is that? He insists, but I'm an engineer. I don't want any job. I want to be an engineer. But sir, it's more important that you put bread on the table than you get the exact profession that you want. A lot of people are unemployed not because there's no job for them, because they insist on having their job. Do anything. Wash dishes in El Coyote restaurant down the block, if you have to. As the Gemara says, Pshot nevelata beshuka, val tomar gavra rabari. If you have to, go sell stinking hides. The skin of the animal stinks. Go sell that, and don't say, it's beneath my dignity to do that. Do anything you can, and don't have to come unto people and beg them for assistance. Do whatever you can to avoid borrowing money. Wash dishes if you have to. Do anything. So there's a lot of people who are unemployed who simply do not want to work. Either they're lazy, either there's nothing good enough for them. And you know what? After a while you get used to this, and it's harder to go back to work eventually. You get used to this kind of a life. And this is a problem, because diligence, zrizut, is very important. While we're young, we need to work, not only to earn money, but also in order to be able to provide for our later years. Social Security is not enough. I think most of you have heard the news that there's not enough money to cover the what do they call them? The baby generation? The baby boomers, yeah. Yeah, there's not enough money in the system. It's almost bankrupt. So you can't depend on that. So what do? You save. Leche la nemala. Go to the ant and see how she saves, as they say in English, for a rainy day. And there are rainy days. Everybody has their ups and downs. Everybody has unexpected expenses. So what is Shlomo Melech telling us here? Be careful with your wallet also. Don't just spend without a heshbon. Manage your finances properly. This is all important. Even though it's true that one has to have bitachon, faith and reliance in Hashem, and not to worry too much about future expenses, but we have to do what is logical. And that is not to spend every penny you have. Hashem Yazor, tomorrow He will provide for me. That's true if you spend on what you need to, but don't go and splurge and buy yourself the best car. It's okay, tomorrow Hashem will provide. No, you can't have that attitude. You have to live according to your standard, your income. And don't borrow on your credit card what you cannot afford to pay within 30 days. You don't know what will happen. Maybe, Chaz v'Shalom, we will not be healthy. After all, why we're saving when we're young? Not just so that we should have when we're older, because we may not be able to work when we're past 60. We may not have the strength to work. Go to the ant and see how hard she works. When there's food. So she should have at the time of the year when there is no food outside. Save when you're young, when you have the strength, when you're able to work. You may not have it later. You may need it later, and how are you going to go fetch it if you don't have the strength for it? And you know, there are many professions, as soon as you turn 50, they try to ask you to retire early. Because when a person turns 50 or 55, he's not as energetic anymore, he's not as productive anymore as somebody just coming out of college, somebody who's 20, who's ambitious, energetic, he wants to get ahead. So these older guys are just taking up this spot. So many heads of companies, they try to get rid of all these oldies and try to get the young blood. And if you're an oldie and trying to get a job, forget it. Why should they hire a 55-year-old teacher when they can get a 25-year-old who's willing to work harder, who doesn't get sick as often, even though she gets pregnant sometimes, but she's much more energetic usually. So therefore, when you're young, work as hard as you can, because you don't know what will be when in your later years. Where do we learn this from? Go to the nemala, go to the ant. A lot of things to learn from her: how she does not steal, how she's so organized. Asher en la katzin shoter u'moshel. She has no katzin. Katzin, he translates over here. She has no a manager or ruler, an overseer or a guide. That's but katzin is somebody on top of her, basically. A shoter, a policeman, moshel, a ruler. There's nobody telling her what to do. There's nobody overseeing what she does, mefakeach, supervising her, and she does a good job. Very few employees are going to do a good job if their boss is not around. If the boss is not around, a lot of them are lazy, a lot of them don't get their work done, and they make mistakes. It's very important for the boss to come around once in a while, You have employees that you hired, and they have a job to do. You want to check on them. You know, in Israel, there is a typical job where a lot is done, a lot is accomplished in the 8-hour day. So much is accomplished that they gave this profession a name, 804. Employees arrive at 8, they do 0, and they leave at 4. Yes. In the same way that Shlomo Melech is calling out to us to save, the importance of managing your money properly, so you should have enough for a rainy day, the same is true, the commentators explain, with mitzvot. Do as many mitzvot, learn as much as Torah when you're young, in your early years, when you're healthy, because when you're older, you will not have the strength, or perhaps chas v'shalom, the ability to perform certain mitzvot. And the same is true with learning. Learning should be done as much as possible in the early years, because in your later years you want to review what you've learned. You want to go deeper into what you've learned once upon a time. You just can't start now from scratch. So in the same way we act with our money, we need to act with our mitzvot. We need to perform and save mitzvot in this world, so we should have what to eat and what to enjoy in the olam haba. Ad matai? No, we missed one pasuk. Tachin b'kaitz lachma, agra b'katzir ma'achala. She provides her bread in the summer and gathers her food in the harvest. We're talking still about the ant. How she works hard when the food is available, because later on there will not be food. When we have a job, when the money is coming in, we have to figure that there may come a time, a month or two, that one may be unemployed. And you cannot survive from the unemployment check. It helps a little bit. So just like the ant gathers her food during the time that there is food available, in the same way, don't be lazy. He's talking again to the lazy individual. Don't be lazy. Get up and go to work and do whatever you can now, because later on you may want to work and you won't be able to. Ad matai atzel tishkav matai takum mishnatecha. How long will you sleep? When will you rise from your sleep? A lot of people who are lazy, they wake up and they stay in bed. If you're waking up already, get up, he says. Ad matai atzel tishkav matai takum mishnatecha. You've already gotten up, you've already awakened, get up from the bed. Here Shlomo Melech is going to tell us about the problems involving with oversleep. That this causes tremendous problems. And this is a yetzer hara that some people have more than others, and especially in the younger years. I'm told that when I will reach 60, I only need to sleep 2 hours a night. I'm just exaggerating. But you will need to sleep a little bit less. That could be. But in the younger years, it is hard. You want to sleep a little bit more. It's good to sleep. It's sweet to sleep. But you have to get work done. And chaval lazman, as we say in Hebrew. Time is so precious. Time is going by. So he says, until when will you sleep? What are you going to gain from it? You're going to lose so much from oversleeping. And if you're already up, get out of bed. Because if you get up and you get out of bed immediately, then you have broken your sleeplessness or any desire to sleep more. If you're still in bed, you're going to turn around, right, left, right, and you're going to continue staying in bed. Once you've gotten up, just get out. He's talking about not just being lazy in action, but being lazy in thoughts. A lot of people are lazy, they don't take action. A lot of people are lazy, they don't think about their problems, they don't think about what they need to do next. And this is a very, very major problem that Pirkei Avot addresses. One who is lazy about acting on what he needs to act, and about thinking about what he needs to think. And the rabbis tell us in Pirkei Avot the famous words, Im ena nili, mili. Remember that? If I do not take care of myself, who will? If I don't aspire, who will aspire for me? Rabbis tell us nobody can be motivated as much as an individual himself. You can motivate people to do something, but that motivation is not as effective as if the individual himself motivates himself, aspires to something, looks forward to something. So if you don't do it, who's going to do it for you? If you don't think about it, plan on it, then who's going to do that for you? It won't be as effective. Your mother pushing you? Not as much. It helps, but not as much as if you on your own aspire and are motivated. So, who will do it for me? And the other commentaries say that Every individual is unique, has his unique mission to fulfill in this world. If I don't do it, who will do it? If I don't do my job, nobody else can fill that job. Every human being is special, every individual is unique, and whatever that individual needs to do in this lifetime, nobody else can do it. He's been sent down to do it. If he doesn't do it, it won't get done. Whoever does not help himself, Hashem doesn't help either. Hashem only helps those who first help themselves. So a person who's lazy, Hashem is not going to push him out of bed. One who wants to get up and do and plans, aspires, makes an effort, Hashem will come along and help him too. But if he remains in bed, nothing will get done. Me'at shenot, me'at tenumot, me'at hibuk yadayim lishkav. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep, describing the lazy man's action. But what is happening over here is me'at, 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 me'at. All these delays because of oversleeping, because of simply postponing and taking action, all of these delays add up, and before you know it, a day has gone by, a week has gone by, a year and years, and an entire lifetime has gone by. One of my favorite sayings in Yiddish goes like this. I'm going to say it in English. There was once an individual on Sunday who on Monday wanted to travel on Tuesday. But on Wednesday he realized that it was already Thursday, so on Friday he already decided to stay for Shabbat. You see how the whole week went by? That's it. Unnecessary delays. Me'at shenot, me'at tenumot, just a little bit more sleep. Let's push it off. Delays and delays and delays. And obviously, who's causing all these delays? The Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara tells you, you don't have the time right now. Wait till after Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, after the holidays. Or, wait after you get married. For those who are still single. And there are Israelis who have told me, it's incredible how many have said this to me. When I've confronted them, what's going to be with Shabbat, what's going to be with Tefillin, and what's going to be with the mitzvot. So the rabbi, they tell me, as soon as I get out of the army, I plan to first go around the world. I'll be in South America, I'll be in the Himalayas, and in India. After my grand tour, I'm going to move to the United States and make some money. And then I'm going to get my green card. Then eventually, I'm going to marry someone. And after that, I'm going to start keeping Shabbat. You see how much they're pushing it up? Who's to say they're going to get married so quickly? It reminds me of this story with a widow, a poor widow, who was so happy and excited she just found an egg. And she ran to her children and she told them, I have some good news, we're going to be rich. I just found an egg. I'm going to put it underneath a hen. And that hen is going to, what's the word for it? Hatch it, lay on it. And we're going to have chicks. And we're going to take all the chicks and we're going to sell them and we're going to buy goats. And we're going to have many goats and eventually we'll buy cows. We'll have cows, we'll have milk, we'll have meat, and we'll become rich. And as she's talking about this and being so excited, the egg dropped and cracked. And all her dreams were shattered. People say things, they don't know what's going to happen in the future. It's not a good idea to delay. Anytime you have the ability to do something now, do it. Don't push off for tomorrow what you can do today. I'm sure they have that saying in Farsi. I know they have it in... Pushes it off, someone who's lazy, somebody who falls prey to the advice of the Yetzer Hara, that he thinks it's okay to postpone and to delay. But in the end, Chaz v'Shalom, what's going to happen? The next pasuk says what's going to happen to him. Uva ki me'alech reshecha u'machsorecha ke'ish magen. Poverty will come upon you like a vagabond and want like an armed man. In other words, things will happen to you so quickly. Before you realize, you'll have no money left in your bank account. You'll become poor. Or as the rabbis tell us concerning mitzvot, Mi shetarach be'erev Shabbat, yavo v'yochal b'Shabbat. Whoever worked hard in this world, called Erev Shabbat, called Friday afternoon, he prepared for Shabbat, he will have what to eat on Shabbat. If we fulfilled mitzvot in this world, we will have what to enjoy and benefit in the world to come. But if we did not work for our mitzvot in this world, uba ki me'alech reshecha, reshecha means poverty, we will be poor in the olam haba. Come upstairs naked without any mitzvot. Poor. Because of pushing off, because of being lazy, because of delaying. So therefore, don't say Lecheshepaneh, as the Rabbi tells in Pirkei Avot. When I will have time, I will do this. Shema lo tipaneh. Maybe you will never have the time for it. Because what happens when somebody delays something? Perhaps today he has the doctor's appointment. Okay, we'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow he has to take care of something for his wife. The following week his mother-in-law is arriving in town and he has to go pick her up and take care of her. Right? After that, Chaz v'shalom, somebody is sick in the family. After that he has to go to a wedding. After that he has a bar mitzvah. After that, Nehum Avelim, somebody passed away. He has to go visit him. After that, well, it's summertime, we need to go on vacation. After that, it's the holidays. If you push off something, the rabbis tell us there will always be others excuses to push it off. Therefore, if you have the ability to do it now, don't push it off. Otherwise, you'll end up empty-handed, not accomplished and poor. Next pasuk, Adam beliyal ishaven olech ikeshut peh. A base person, they translate it here. A wicked man walks with a crooked mouth. Now, even though he's talking about a whole different idea over here, it's really connected to the individual before who was lazy and not willing to learn from an ant. Had you learned from an ant all that there is to learn, you would have adopted so many good midot, so many good characteristics. From an ant, as we said, she doesn't steal, she manages her food very well, she is persistent, consistent, doesn't tire. By the way, the Midrash says what happens when an ant gets tired. An ant usually carries her food in her mouth, right? She goes straight in that direction of her mouth. When she gets tired, she walks backwards. In other words, it's slower, but she's still carrying. She's still going home. She's still going to take the food home, but she slows down a little bit. She doesn't give up. And that is why she's able to accumulate so much. So Adam Beliyal is an individual who's base. What does Beliyal really mean? Beliyal comes from the word Beli'ol, not wanting to have a burden. An ant has a burden, carries a burden. This man does not want to learn from the ant because he does not want a burden. Lo rotzeh ol. He does not want to have any burden. He's lazy. Or we're talking about an ish aven, a man who simply has certain good ideas that he always talks about, but deep down in his heart he doesn't intend to do them. The Gaon of Vilna says there are three tipusim over here, there are three personalities over here that don't get anything done. You have the Beliyal, who's lazy, who doesn't want to learn from the ant, who doesn't want a burden, doesn't want to work hard, right? You have the Ish Aven, who talks about everything that he plans to do, but deep down he never intends to do it. So he's Ish Aven. His thoughts are not good, are not healthy. He does not practice what he preaches. And then you have the Olech Ikeshut Peh. He has a crooked mouth. A crooked mouth is another way of describing somebody who says Lashon Hara, who gossips about others, talks about others. He has a lot to say about other people except about himself. Besides the terrible avon of Lashon Hara, that you're giving people a bad name, you're ruining their reputation. Besides that, you know what it shows? That this individual, all he has in his mind, all his concerns is about others. What about himself? He doesn't think about his own problems. We have so many things to take care of on our own, in our own home. Why talk about others? And that is why the rabbis tell us, be careful. If you have a character defect, don't criticize somebody else who has it. Take care of yourself first before you tell others to take care of that same problem that you may have. So here you have an individual who's talking about everybody else, talking negatively, spreading the bad news, and not concerned about his own self-improvement. All he has in mind is criticizing others about their problems. These individuals, because they did not learn from the ant and they did not adapt midot tovot, what will you see in them, in their behavior? You will see koretz be'einav, molel beraglav, more be'etzbeotav. He winks with his eyes, he taps with his feet, he points with his fingers. In reality, what this is a description of one who speaks Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara can happen with the wink of an eye. It can happen with all sorts of signals that you send with your body. That's a simple interpretation here. But it also means that one who does not adopt good midot in life, then all his character, all his behavior will be corrupt. You will notice it in every movement of his. You will notice it in the way he talks. You will notice it in the way he walks. You can notice from the way people walk if they're humble or if they're arrogant, for example. So someone who's corrupt, someone who has not adopted good midot in his life, you will see it in many areas. You will see it in his body. You will see it in his movement, in his eyes. Ta'apuchot belibo, choresh ra bechol et midanim yishaleach. Perverseness is in his heart. That's tapuchot. He plots evil continually and he sows discord. Sows discord. In Hebrew that's called meharher riv. He's always bringing people to fight. He's causing people to fight. Instead of being rodef shalom and shoher shalom, instead of pursuing peace and making peace between people, instead of learning from the nemala, from the ant, to have a peaceful coexistence where nobody steals from the other, he does just the opposite. He brings people to fight. He talks bad about people. He badmouths them. He instigates them. Mecharcher riv. Tapuchot belibo. Because he has all this perverseness in his heart. So he's not pursuing peace. He's pursuing discord amongst people. Had he learned from the ant, he would have adapted a beautiful midah of ohev shalom and rodef shalom, which is what everybody should aspire to do. Make peace amongst husband and wife, amongst relatives, amongst friends who may have some problem. That is the correct thing to do. One should always pursue this path and not remain forever angry, upset at another individual, regardless of what that individual did to him. Because in the end, everything is min hashamayim anyway. So why be upset at him? If he did something terrible, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will manage. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what to do, and as we will soon see what happens to those individuals who truly are to blame. But why should you think of revenge? Why should you think of bad-mouthing and lashon hara? Why should you fight? Why should you hate? You don't gain anything from this. You only get ulcers, headaches, and you won't accomplish anything. Al ken pitom yavo edo. Al ken pitom yavo edo. He says, therefore shall his calamity come suddenly. Peta yishaver ve'en marpeh. Suddenly shall he be broken beyond remedy. There's several ideas over here. First of all, HaKadosh Baruch Hu meshalem midah keneged midah, an eye for an eye. There are certain individuals that we don't know what's going on in their mind and in their heart. As the rabbis say, there are several things that a person does not know. One, when he will die. Two, when Mashiach will come. And three, what's going on in his friend's mind and heart. Bezat Hashem, eventually, we'll get to a very important pasuk that tells us that there is one way that you can tell what's going on in your friend's heart when it comes to emotions and feelings. Yes. But what is truly going on in an individual's mind, what he's planning or plotting against you, is very difficult to know. Because he may be your friend. Until yesterday he was your friend. Remember the guy who we co-signed for? He became a zar, he became a stranger. Especially, we're talking about $50,000 you co-signed. People just run away. Somebody yesterday told me that he gave one of his employees, a worker, $800 to buy some material. And the guy just ran away. Never came back. Very typical story. Non-Jewish guy. The guy who ran away. Calls him up and finally catches up with him because the guy never picked it up when he saw on his caller ID who it was. But eventually he called from another number and he was able to get to him. And the guy tells him all sorts of stories. That, yeah, this and I'll see you tomorrow. He never came. A bunch of lies. What is happening to these people? They're burning the bridges. They don't realize that if you do something like that, the guy is never going to hire you again. And if somebody comes and asks for a credit report on him, right, and they go to the original boss, what are you going to say? This guy is not supposed to. They don't realize at the moment that they take, the Yetzirah is saying, oh, I got $800 in my hand. And $800 is not a lot of money. But imagine $50,000. The guy is co-signed. Let him take care of it. So what? And they justify it. They have all sorts of way of justifying. He's got enough money anyway. Why, did you look in his bank accounts? You know exactly how much money he has. And even if he does, it's gezel, stealing. How many people who have gone and purchased large orders from a company they did business with for many years, knowing that in 2 days they're going bankrupt? You know you're going bankrupt because you have to. I mean, if you have to, you have to. Then why go and why make such a big order? Especially when you did business with him for 20 years that he trusts you. Is that fair? It's a tremendous avon. Tremendous avon. Hilul Hashem, too. But people don't think about that. They think, well, I'm going to make good money now. I'm going bankrupt. I'm entitled to. The law says I can go bankrupt. Yeah, okay. If you can't pay up, fine. It happens. But to intentionally go and defraud someone?
And they get back to the business after 1 year.
After a couple of years, yeah.
1 year.
All of that is called tapuchot, people who have these perverted ideas. So what's going to happen to these individuals? Al ken pitom yavo edo, they're going to have a sudden downfall. In the same way, people could not be careful with them. People did not know what's in their mind and what's in their heart. They don't know their intentions, so they could not be careful. They could not safeguard their money. In the same way that they did baseter, hiddenly, in the same way their downfall will happen all of a sudden without being prepared for it, out of nowhere. From the least expected direction, it's going to hit them hard. Midah keneged midah, al ken pitom yavo edo. Their downfall will come all of a sudden. Peta yishaver, and he will collapse completely. Ve'en marpeh. What's ve'en marpeh? And he will not be able to recover. It will be beyond remedy. And this has two interpretations. Ve'en marpeh means that Chas v'shalom, somebody can have a tremendous collapse, financial collapse. After all, a lot of his income was not kosher, was taking advantage of people, so it will be beyond repair. His collapse will be big, a real collapse, a real bankruptcy, not a fake one. And another idea of ve'en marpeh is that we're talking about somebody who's been lazy all his life, somebody who's had perverted ideas all his life, who never adopted good midot, never learned musar, and as a result of that, his midot, his character is so ingrained, kokach mushrash, in his nature, that is kimat ve'en marpeh. There's almost no remedy. Try to change somebody who's already 70 years old. Difficult. A lot of Russians who came out of Russia, who were brainwashed with communism, and right now they're in their 50s and 60s, they don't believe in God, Chas v'shalom, because this is what they were taught. It's hard to convince them. A Sephardic Jew, it's easier for him to do teshuvah. You know why? Because he remembers his grandfather taking him when he was a little boy to shul. He remembers the tradition. Many Ashkenazi Jews are so distant from their roots, from their tradition, because their father and grandfather, and perhaps their great-grandfather, were not observant, depending what part of Europe or Asia they came from. And nituk, the gap, is much greater and more difficult for them therefore to do teshuvah. But it's not completely beyond repair. Even though he says over here, ve'en marpeh, there's always hope. There's always hope if one learns musar. As the rabbis tell us in the Midrash, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was very concerned for the Jewish people in Mitzrayim because they have gone down to the 49th level of Tum'ah. Had they gone down to the 50th level, they would not have been able to get out of Egypt. What's the 50th level of Tum'ah? Heresy, apikorsut. You don't believe in anything. That's very difficult to get out of. The rabbis tell us, however, that in the time right before Mashiach comes, the generation will go down to the lowest level of Tum'ah possible, the 50th level of Tum'ah, but they will be able to come out of it. Why? Because we have something now that our forefathers in Egypt did not have. We have the Torah. And it's through the Torah that one is able to come out of even the lowest and deepest levels of Tum'ah. So we never give up on anybody. We never lose hope. But there's no doubt that it's much more difficult to correct yourself, to correct your mistakes, to work on one's midot in his later years. The earlier the better. Just like learning a language up to the age of 10, all languages are the same. Chinese is just as easy as Spanish. For a child who's 10 years old, up to 10, he just hears. He hears the sounds, he mimics, he repeats. He doesn't have to bother about grammar rules. He doesn't have to pay bills. His mind is not preoccupied and full of shtuyot. Child grows up, becomes a teenager, becomes an adult, then his mind is invaded with all sorts of things. Now he has to, oh no, Chinese, all these pictures. It becomes difficult to read, to write, to speak, to imitate properly the accent. There are some languages that are easier. With age, things become more difficult to do. We need assistance sometimes physically to walk. We need sometimes assistance to learn. We don't grasp so easily. We don't retain the information so easy. And the more so with midot, ingrained characteristics, it's going to be very difficult to change. And what happens if a marriage has gone sour for so many years? As I've said many, many times, they've lived together for 25 years, and now they're ready to go to a marriage counselor after all the ill feelings have accumulated. They never made up. They never said, I'm sorry. They never stimulated their marriage. They never had good moments. They were always busy between the kids and the work. They never made time for each other, quality time. At the 25 years you're going to go to a marriage counselor, you've lost all the feelings for each other. The two, or at least one of them, may not be interested anymore in the other. No matter what you do, it's not good enough. And even then, I've said, it's still possible. If one is tied down to what the Torah says, if one is willing to make major changes in his life and in his personality, it's hard, but it's possible. He can convince the other side that he's sincere, that he's serious, and they can have a beautiful relationship for the rest of their life. But it's very difficult. Very, very difficult. That is why he uses the words ven marpeh. It's almost beyond repair. Almost beyond repair, unless an individual takes it upon himself to go to a seminar, which B'ezrat Hashem we're going to be having soon, a seminar by Arachim, July 4th weekend, which I encourage every one of you who has someone that perhaps use all this information, that he should avail himself of this weekend, where there will be various lectures in Hebrew and English on two levels. Level 1 for those newcomers, and level 2 for those who already know a little bit, to enrich themselves with all this knowledge that Judaism has, with all this good advice. So we should have a better life with our spouses, a better life with our children, with our friends, and a better relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So even though one has become distant, we should never lose hope. Everybody eventually can come back, especially in the generation of Mashiach, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I will send them all sorts of signals to come back to me. And if they don't come back to me on their own, I will bring them back through their children. And many parents today have done teshuvah because of their children. The children going to a Jewish school and acquiring all these Jewish values, and the parents are impressed. They were deprived of this, it's not their fault. And now they see how beautiful it is. If you know a family, you know a child, you know an individual who could use this information, and all of us could use it too, but especially so those who have been deprived of it. People are thirsty today. You just introduce it to them, and they will catch on. It will catch on like fire. As I said before, today we have something called the Torah. Even if one is on the lowest level of Tum'ah, there is a refuah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'ezrat Hashem, will heal all of us and will bring us back with Teshuvah Shelema. Your question was, each of us is here for a job. How do we determine what our job is? That's a very good question. How does one know what his mission is? Our tradition says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes us to where we belong, will make us meet the people that we need to meet, and as long as we don't interfere with his job, right, then we will be where we need to be, and we will end up doing what we need to do. That is assuming, of course, that we've landed in the right place and not interfered with his job. There are times that things go wrong, and that is that's the whole idea behind reincarnation. Reincarnation, the Kabbalah describes as one planting a flower on the north side of his garden. It doesn't do well. There's too much shade or whatever, and he has to uproot it and put it on the south side of the garden. Hashem plants us down here, and sometimes we don't do so well. He has to uproot us and bring us back and replant us on another side. There are people who grew up in Siberia. They just didn't do well. Hashem takes them from this world at the time, whenever their time comes up, and replants them next time in Me'ah She'arim, in Geula, in Bnei Brak. Not in a kibbutz, but in a good place. This time you're going to do well. This time you won't have any excuses. This time, B'ezrat Hashem, you will be much more successful spiritually. So, usually, Hashem puts it into our mind and puts it in the situation that we should be able to do what is expected of us. However, even if we're in the right situation and we have met the right people, we still have some degree of free will. Do we do a good job? Do we do our maximum? Or are we lazy, like we spoke about the guy who's lazy? Here he has an opportunity to speak to an individual. Imagine you have an opportunity to speak to your neighbor about the importance of keeping kosher. And you don't do it. You just ignore it. Upstairs, they're going to say, why didn't you talk to him? The guy he wouldn't have hit you over the head. What were you afraid of? So in other words, we are put in a situation where we can do a lot, but sometimes we don't do enough. But generally speaking, if one wants to do the right thing, he's prepared himself to do the right thing, then Hashem will guide him. He will go on the cruise, because on that cruise that he will go, he's going to meet an individual that he may have something to speak to him about, something that will affect him, or he will be affected by. And that is how it works with soulmates. Hashem brings two people together who belong with each other. One way or another, it's going to happen. Even if one lives in South Africa and one lives in Hawaii, they're going to meet on the cruise in the Caribbean, if it was meant for them to meet. People who from different backgrounds, who never thought that they would meet. If it's meant for them to meet, one way or another, they're going to meet. They may meet in a Bet HaKnesset, they may meet in a school, they may meet in the street. Hashem eventually will bring the two together because they belong with each other. One has to have the desire and the interest to do the right thing. Hashem will make sure that he meets the right people and that he will do the right thing. But we have some degree of free will, and we can tell Hashem, no, we're not interested. Or tomorrow, mañana, and that day never comes. So that unfortunately ruins it for many people. The Yetzer Hara is working very hard for us not to do what our mission is, for us not to succeed. People fail, and some people succeed. Therefore, the more you learn this musar, the more aware you will be of the tactics of the Yetzer Hara, and God willing, you will have the strength to defeat the Yetzer Hara. B'ezrat Hashem.